holiday season brings us an endless variety of inspiration and painting ideas. So in this video, we will create a gorgeous flower that's often referred to as Christmas cactus or holiday cactus, a very popular winter flowering plant that comes to us all the way from tropical rainforests. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Latin name, which you can see on the screen, but I'm super excited about the color of this plant. It's pure vivid magenta, which you can find in most watercolor sets. My preference is for transparent quinacridone magenta that you can layer over and over from light to dark, and it just happens to be the official color of the upcoming year.
Coincidence?
I don't think so. Did you know that every December, the Pantone Color Institute announces the official color of the year? The color experts believe embodies the entire mood and aesthetic of the current time. I just found out that Viva Magenta is the official color of the upcoming year, so it's perfect for our cactus flower, and I'm going to give you an insight into my process for using it and show you how to build an entire palette of complementary colors around it so we can arrive at a beautiful botanical painting.
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
As always, the link to free reference photo is in the description below, and if you're interested in real-time long-form tutorials with outlines, lots of extra tips and detailed explanations, I invite you to join me over on Patreon, where you will find this and many other watercolor tutorials. Patreon is what allows me to run this YouTube channel, so thank you very much to everyone who supports me there. So let's zoom in on our reference photo and talk about which pigments and watercolor techniques we will use. In step 1, we will need to create a light color map using lots of water to help the watercolors flow. My technique for the first layer is quite simple. I will work on one petal at a time so my edges don't bleed, cover the surface with a very light mixture of water and magenta, and then slowly add more saturated magenta wet into wet around the edges and on the tip of each petal. And my main pigment is quinacridone magenta from Core, and in some cases a little bit of purple. Purple is very close to magenta on the color spectrum, approaching the blue side, which means it will be suitable for shadows. And I'm going to use my favorite Dax Design purple for these darker shadow areas, but you can experiment with a variety of similar pigments like quinacridone violet, for example, or make your own shadow color by mixing magenta with pure blue. There will be entire areas on larger petals where you can start with a much more saturated mixture like I'm doing here and add your shadow colors wet into wet. In other cases where we see the inside of the petal, it will be important to keep the center very light, almost white. You can apply a slightly different technique where you start with more saturated color around the edges and then blend with clear water towards the center and all the way up. This method works just fine, with a caveat that you need to work a bit faster so the edges of your color don't dry out before you blend them with clear water.
All right, man, we gotta work fast.
We have a few large petals left before switching all the way up to the leaves. And remember, this is not a typical flower, it's a cactus. So we have these stems which resemble leaf-like pads joined one into the other like a chain of sorts. And we will need a range of greens, but not as many as it might seem at first. So for the background first layer, it's best to start with a yellowish green. Either add some lemon yellow to your favorite green, or you can use green gold like I'm doing here. Mine is from Daniel Smith. Then drop a little bit of your regular green. My go-to convenience green straight from the tube is Hooker's Green, wet on wet in the center, and just let it spread. You can always create your own natural looking green by mixing your blue and yellow, so use whatever you have on hand. And for the shadows, we don't actually need to introduce anything new. Simply recycle your shadow color from the petals. So I'm going to recycle my purple and mix it with a little bit of that green gold. This may surprise you, but purple always comes out looking brownish when mixed with yellows and oranges. And so in this case, our warm green is very much on the yellow side, and mixed with purple will create a beautiful, rich brown color, very natural, matching what we see in the reference photo. And if you want to know more about mixing purples, yellows, and oranges, oranges. You may recall my tutorial on painting yellow flowers, so I will link it below in the video description so you can watch it after this one. Now let the cactus dry out completely before painting the next layer of color. And this watercolor drying break is brought to you by this green tea that my mom brought to me all the way from the other side of the world. It's great because coffee makes me a little bit too jittery to paint small details, so I'm actually burning a candle that smells of espresso while drinking green tea. It's a whole production here, so I'm trying to trick my brain into thinking that I'm still drinking coffee.
I love coffee.
And now that the second layer is dry, we may start slowly introducing a new pigment which will really boost the vibrancy. So I'm talking of course about opera pink. If you're a little bit familiar with various shades of watercolor pinks, this one is sometimes called opera rose depending on the brand. And if you want the most accurate match, just look for PR122 in your favorite brand of watercolors. This fluorescent pigment is really over the top. It's going to make the whole thing pop when we glaze it on top of magenta. Very beautiful, but it's not perfect.
It's not perfect.
Opera pink has two issues that we need to be aware of. Number one, this pigment is fugitive no matter what brand you choose. Fugitive is just a fancy term for not stable enough, meaning it will slowly start fading. And I'm talking like a few years, not a few days, but it will lose a little bit of this intensity that it's famous for. So if you do apply it, try not to hang the painting in direct sunlight. That way the fluorescent effect will last much longer. And of course, this aspect of opera pink is why I always recommend using it as a supplementary color, adding just a hint of vivid pink, but relying on strong permanent colors that last, like magenta, to build your painting. By all means, have fun with opera pink or opera rose. Apply it on the most vibrant parts of the petals, typically around the edges. And of course, we need to add some purple or violet shadows, just like we did in the first layer, which brings me to the second issue that we need to keep in mind.
We have a problem.
This gorgeous vivid pink color is granulating, which means it can seriously interfere with pigment flow wet on wet if we try to add additional colors. So if you do choose to use fluorescent pink, be patient, use lots of water for lighter parts, and be prepared to get a little bit frustrated, but I promise you it's worth it. I feel like opera pink really wants to be in the spotlight, and it secretly doesn't like any other pigments coming into the picture. So one thing you can do to fix this issue is glaze your pink, then wait for everything to dry out, and then add more shadows after using wet on dry, like I'm doing here. This way you can even blend your purple with clear water, and the pink that's dry underneath will not interfere. After hearing all these issues with opera pink, you may wonder why I bother at all, and you can certainly skip it, but I think it adds such magical quality to painting, such vibrancy to the work that it's totally worth it. I hope you like it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. It's always interesting to hear what other artists think about fugitive pigments and whether it's worth it to go through this hassle to get that extra bit of vivid color. I think it is.
Because it's beautiful.
So let's finish the leafy looking stem, and now we can go much more saturated with our main green. I'm using Hooker's green again and adding some highlights using green gold. For shadows, of course, I'll be using again dioxazine purple and green gold mixed together. You can see it on my palette. It's much thicker than in the first layer and much more saturated, so very little water. I'm dropping the purple right into the green on the shadow areas and into those areas where we see a little bit of brown pigmentation, adding more and more as I see the pigment spread and my water is drying out. So I'm going to work all the way until my purple is no longer spreading and my paper is almost dry. This is really fun and creates a lovely continuity and consistency in our palette from the flower petals to the stem, so that no one can accuse me of using too much color and introducing extra greens. I know you all think that I use too many pigments sometimes, so I try to keep it as simple as possible, and sometimes simple is the best choice. And you may have noticed that we used a lot of glazing techniques in this tutorial. If you want to learn more about watercolor glazing and how to use it to your advantage to paint beautiful glowing watercolors, especially botanicals, check out this video above, and I will see you next week with more watercolor magic.